All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to yet another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Raph riding shotgun and solo for another episode here, and I've got a guest that's coming back to, hold on, let me double check the archives, to the show from last time he was on. It's been a while. Actually, you've been probably on before that too, but September 18th, 2013 was the last episode that I've got your name associated to. Vikas, welcome, man. It's been forever.
Ralph, it has been forever. Definitely not wiser, but definitely grayer since last time.
Right? Still British.
Still British.
Hey, I got a good joke for you. All right. So why is it that British always say British?
No idea.
Because they drank the tea. It's a dad joke.
I was gonna say stick to your day job, but
come on, that's slightly funny. No, all right.
Raph, that was poor, man. That was poor.
Listen, that's a good dad joke. I'm gonna run with that. All right. Anyway, Vikas, welcome, man. It's good to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Vikas Bhatia. I'm the founder and CEO of a technology company called Just Protect. But I am a 20-year cyber guy. Got my stripes doing SecOps for the MOD in the UK. Did half a life sentence at one of the big four. Started my own.
That explains the gray.
What's that?
That explains the gray.
Yeah, seriously. Started my own virtual CISO company a year and a half before Target got breached. So I can tell you that was a fun time. And did that for 5 years. Looked after companies like Federal Reserve, so pretty sensitive companies there. But since 2017, I've been focused on Just Protect. All
right. So the last conversation you and I actually had was this is almost funny, but it was really around.
Well, it was Protect. It was Protect 13.
Yeah.
So the irony there, right? Just Protect.
Yeah, that's also that's actually a really good lead-in. But we talked about third-party risks. We talked about a bunch of other issues. But it seems like in the years since, lots has changed, but a lot of things have stayed the same.
Nothing's changed. Right. Nothing has changed. InfoSec people still can't talk to management. They still can't get budgets. We're still behind the curve. We're still talking about extended enterprise. It's the same problems, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the ROI? There's too many vendors. All of that stuff. That hasn't changed. I think what has changed, though, Raph, is the interconnected nature of business today. Right? That wasn't there in 2013. We were just starting to talk about cloud.
Yeah, we were.
I remember.
Yeah, and what's interesting, look, I think what's dramatically changed, and this is not necessarily a security indicator, but it's not a security thing, but it's an indicator for security, is, as you said, we're dramatically more connected. The reliance on things third-party connections, affiliations, partners, alliances, providers, all that is so huge. That and now you've got the prevalence of supply chain attacks, right? Everybody's talking about supply chain attacks since that thing happened with that company that then breached all those other companies and that government thing, right?
Yeah.
And then of course you've got the myriad since, and we look at it and go, all right, well. Somebody at one point said, and we did a podcast on this. Somebody at one point said, "Well, what do we need to change? And we need to change how we approach third-party risks." And you go, "How?" Right? Because I look at this and go, "All right, hold on." So, a million years ago, when you and I first recorded an episode, we were doing spreadsheets, best effort, and we had hundreds of partners, and we'd hope that they would answer our questions. Now we do spreadsheets and send questionnaires, and now we can't do site visits because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Also, it's impractical because the number of third parties has probably quintupled, if not more.
Sure.
So we go, all right, so does every company have a dedicated group of 10,000 people that all they do is assess their third parties? The answer is no.
No.
Right? So it's boggling my brain that the crazy amount of reliance on third parties has not driven more innovation in how we approach this, aside from what you guys are doing.
Thank you for that.
Present company excluded.
But this isn't about us, right? It's about the problem.
But you've got the T-shirt on, so I'm gonna, or the polo on, so I'm going to have to give you a pitch there.
I'll let people Google it and look us up. But let's think about this for a second, right? We were talking about third party back in 2013.
Yeah.
In that first podcast. But it's not third party that is the problem. It's the nth party, because the third parties use third parties that use third parties that use third parties.
Yeah.
And it's the interconnected nature of those nth party type relationships. Yeah. So if you, and I've, former auditor, former Big Four, whatever, right? Like, we used to get called in to do assessments, either on the actual organization or its extended supply chain. Great. It was typically a compliance-driven or mandated requirement for third parties to be assessed. Great. Checkbox exercise. Let's send them 1,000 questions. Let's send them a SIG light. Let's send them a cake. Let's send them something, right? Oh no, now I've got to risk tier my vendors. I high, medium, low. But irrespective of which part of the business that request for that vendor came in from, irrespective of the product or service that business supported, right? That business unit supported, every vendor was treated the same, got the same survey, etc. Right? It was at the Fed for a while. It's probably statute of limitations probably passed, so I'm sorry if it hasn't. We would send out a 26-page, right, GRC-driven assessment, and you could tell by question 3 that this person had no idea what they were talking about. Right? Waste of time for us, waste of time for them, and now you're getting virtual CISOs that type of thing that I used to do. Can you help me pass the test? Can you help me fill this thing in? So, I'm not taking away the need for assessments to be done. I'm not taking away the need for us to have visibility into those nth party relationships. But the way that we've approached it as an industry is, I send you a questionnaire, you fill in the questionnaire, I then spend maybe another two man days on verification, right? Oh, you won't share your documentation with me, let's set up a WebEx or whatever. It's not what we're doing, it's the way that we're doing it. And granted, you've got, tech solutions that try and solve the problem, but organizations are changing so frequently and so rapidly that even the assessment cycle doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Well, so look, let's start with, there's a couple things to unpack there. Let's start with the easiest one, and that is the number of third parties, or if we just stick to direct relationships, third parties you have is there. And I've worked for large companies and I work for small companies. At the large companies, we were reviewing the critical, most important ones as determined by the business, we hope, every couple of years.
Sure.
Some of them would simply a good chunk of them would simply fall off the map because that janitorial service, I mean, who knows what they're doing, and they're not going to know how to answer these questions anyway. And that's to take nothing away from janitorial services, by the way, but it's just simply they're not IT people. And then, so you look at the scale of the problem, and if you simply do the math, okay, let's take your top 10% of the number of vendors you have, your third parties, take your top 10%. And you go, okay, those are the ones that you have to know enough about to be able to talk about. Go, great. That requires how many man hours of effort? Say,
well, let's just first of all, just to make the math even more simple, let's assume that 10% of your 10% are the ultra behemoths, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking Microsoft, you're talking SAP, Oracle, AWS, etc., right? Like AWS probably lets in a dozen or so organizations a year to come and review its security posture.
Right.
Everyone else can go jump. Right, from their perspective. So now if you take your critical vendors that are outside of that, even if you're talking 10,000 vendors, which is mediocre for a mid-sized company, you're talking potentially 90 vendors that don't fall into that tier 1 category that are still critical to the business. So if you're talking 90, and each assessment's taking 4 to 6 weeks, right? It's what we hear on average.
Yeah.
It means that you've first of all got an exposure of, because you're only assessing criticals, you've got an exposure of 9,000, right? that you can't get your head around. And then you've got these antiquated processes that are being, these antiquated methods that are being used on the critical 90. But what we're not doing is working out, of those 90, are 50% of them using AWS, for example, or Google Cloud, thereby negating some of those controls that we need to assess. In today's way of doing it, it's just not possible.
Well, look, the sheer math of it makes it impossible at any reasonable scale. And so we do best effort, and we know that best effort is kind of what's gotten us to the state we are, which is frankly shit.
Correct.
And I'm putting that politely. So the answer when I was around simply was, and I was doing this related jobs, was simply do less of them but be more precise. So that meant, okay, we're gonna cut down the ones that we're going to do, but we're going to give them longer questionnaires and have like in-person, virtual or in-person meetings, and then we're going to go do assessments and site surveys and blah blah. Which just means that every day the debt that you carry from all those relationships grows even more, and at some point it's just like the debt is lapping the lead car by so many times. You just sort of go, all right, this is unmanageable. And I am absolutely shocked and awe that there hasn't been a major revolution in this space, because at some point somebody's got to look at this logically and go, the way we're doing things is untenable. Whether you're talking about a vendor relationship, whether you're talking about third-party code in your applications, whether you're talking about your payroll provider, your SaaS companies, your operating system vendor, and what that one incident that we're not going to talk about taught us is that somewhere down your supply chain, somebody could make a big enough compromise that by the time it gets to you, you'll never, ever, ever see it.
Yep.
And you won't be the only victim, but you'll be thoroughly broken into. And then you go, well, what the hell? How can we? It's a hanging. How do we prevent this next time? And the answer is you don't. Not the way the current state of the world is. You don't, and that's a problem.
But here's the other. Just to add on, so I agree with everything that you've just said. The problem isn't just third party though. Let's look at Colonial, right? What happened at Colonial? It was ransomware. So you look at kind of some of the LinkedIn posts out there. There was an information security manager role posted 2 months prior to the Colonial breach. Well, we did the analysis, albeit on a whiteboard, and we said, okay, when did someone tell someone else that there wasn't enough information security oversight? And we tracked back to about 9 months. So I've got an audit, right? I do my annual audit. The auditor goes around, interviews the people, schedules the time, and then writes the report, makes the finding, presents it to the board, gets the approval for the rec, right? Budget, etc., and then the post goes out. So from the point that we had that piece of information, there wasn't oversight, to that post, to that job rec going out, was about 9 months. So there was 9 months exposure there. So if we can't even manage that internally, Raf, how the hell are we going to do that externally,
at a scale,
with the number of vendors and the nth party relationships? You talk about the kind of tipping point or the pivot point in the industry. You've got that breach, right? That credit card breach from back in the day, right? Which everyone's done to death. But actually, from a personal perspective, my tipping point was really when DFS came out, Part 500, New York State, Department of Financial Services. I remember talking to a CISO at a pretty well-known, right, financial services organization, and I said, "Are you guys keeping up with your third party?" This is 2016, 17. I said, "Are you guys keeping up with your third party assessments?" He's like, "Yeah, not really." I said, "But DFS is now mandating that every FSI over 10 employees now needs to have a third-party risk assessment program. If you guys, you're a dedicated CISO, 15 years expertise, team of 15, all the latest tech, and dedicated line item budget.
Yep.
If you guys aren't keeping up, how the hell are they going to keep up?
The answer is they're not, and this is what baffles me a little bit. Is we in an industry that focuses so much on cool toys, new tech, solving problems, this stopped being the sexy thing. Third party risk stopped being the sexy thing a long time ago, and I feel like, and I'm sorry if this if this angers anybody, but I feel like we sort of looked at the problem, went, okay, let's throw some ideas at it. We couldn't.
Holy crap! We're not going to be able to fix it.
Yeah,
so let's
screw it. Let's move on. And we got ADD and we moved on because we then like threat intelligence became a thing and everybody's selling threat, and then endpoint security became, and we can solve that. Yeah. But you're like, but there's this big thing over here, this giant pink elephant that says, "Hi, I'm one of your biggest providers, and I don't actually have a security person in my company." And I have no idea how to answer this 90-page questionnaire you sent me. So I'm going to pay a consultant to make sure that, or a lawyer, to make sure that we answer all of them in the most correct but not lying way possible.
Correct.
And like, here goes, crossing my fingers, right? Hope nothing happens.
I spent a long time, as you know, at the Big Four, and we were educated about conflicts of interest, segregation of duties, right? Every single year, annual training, et cetera. When I ran my own consulting firm, I remember saying to one of my advisors, I feel like I can crack the problem. And he said, why do you think that is? And I said, because I'm now in that conflict of interest position. I not only help large organizations do assessments, but I'm also helping those smaller organizations respond to them. And that's really when the aha moment kicked in. I was like, Ding. There's got to be a better way, right? There's got to be a better way. And when we think about it, when you take a step back, it's not that difficult if you put your head around it. We have, for every security practitioner out there that's done the CISSP, we do. My day was pen and paper. I don't think it's on computers now, right? So it's like all tech driven. But no one, after submitting their CISSP, gets a follow-on question from the examiner saying, hey, we know that you answered C on this question. Did you really mean C? Have you got the evidence to back it up? Right? Why is it when we fill in these like personality assessments, right? Your Myers-Briggs, your other online assessments, that we can submit these non-proctored assessments and get a result. No one then follows up and says, did you actually mean that? Can you prove it? We as risk or security or compliance professionals, look at how we've done it. We've taken a reg, right? We've taken a control catalog, we've taken an ISO, a FedRAMP, or a NIST, or whatever, and we've said we need to ensure that our third parties meet this control. How do we do that? We turn the control statement into a question, put a question mark at the end of it, and then hope for the best.
Yeah.
But what we then do is we follow that on with 5 or so questions, which help us get to the truth.
Yeah.
But what if we could get to that truth quicker? We're excited by this opportunity because the third-party risk problem, from our perspective and from my perspective, quite candidly, that ship has sailed. People have been doing third-party forever and failing at it really badly. I did speak to a CISO. I was on a conference call yesterday, and a CISO very proudly said, we now have a platform that does third-party assessments. So I said, okay, well, how much follow-up time do you spend on average once that assessment's been received? So not only have you wasted 4 weeks of your life that you're never going to get back, but you're then also wasting another half a day to get to the truth.
Yeah.
I said, well, what if you could ask 5 more questions for every major control that impacts your business? I said, would that negate that follow-on call? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Well, there's your problem, because people haven't worked out how to solve it. So they put this cut and shut solution together, which is a bolt onto something else. And then we as practitioners are still sitting there saying, well, the highest risk vendors are assessed, but then I have to spend half of my day following up. and verifying some of this stuff.
I gotta do that. Well, so this is the interesting point that kind of rattles around in my head when you mention this, and that is that. So I'm your third party provider of, I don't know, call it background screening for some specialized industry, right? Big, high risk, important. I answer some questions that are in a way that you're like, this doesn't look right. What are you going to do? Are you going to fire me? Is your business going to allow you to fire me? The answer is no. Almost every time, right? So
depends on how much authority the organization has. Like if it's a
fair
defense, federal, yes,
yeah, that's different.
I mean, I've nixed certain relationships because the classification of data was that high.
Yeah.
But in most of the listeners or viewers, organizations, InfoSec won't trump the business. The business will always trump InfoSec. They'll always accept the risk. They'll always park it. Wouldn't it be better though, Raf, if it was, let's say, a software provider, right? I provide a software solution for background checks. Aren't you better off knowing what the underlying platform of that software solution is, rather than saying, do you have a SOC 2 and being handed AWS's SOC 2? I don't care that I know that AWS has a SOC 2. Right? I don't want to read AWS's SOC 2. I want to know about your controls.
Yeah.
And what you guys do, not whether AWS checks the fire extinguishers in the data center.
Yeah. It's such a strange thing because identifying, I feel like there's a cascading wall of water that comes at you when you're at the bottom of this going, I need to go assess you. Like you have to figure out how to identify your top critical vendors and what the heck that criteria is. Right? Let's say you get that right, and that's a stretch. Then you've got to partition them out to some workable chunk of work, and pray to God that's actually the chunk of work that's going to make it, not the company that's at the bottom of the cutoff. Right? That's got access to everything.
Yeah, because three of those, and then you're in trouble anyway.
One of those, and you're in trouble anyway.
Right.
And then. You have your questions or your controls qualifiers with the questions attached sent out and worded in a way that the person looking at it isn't just like, yeah, this looks all right, close enough, and then they actually know what they're saying. And if they don't, how do you explain it to them in a way that gets you an answer that you're comfortable with, isn't bullshit? Then you got to find, and I know this is true as of 7 years ago. I don't know if it's true now, but I know at the time I could tell you there's no automated way to look through a 29-page questionnaire and assess it for, did somebody just flub this and do a best guess, or did they actually provide answers that made sense? Because sometimes you ask, like if we're actually taking a test, right, to know whether somebody knows something, you're going to ask the same question 3 or 4 different ways.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
In these control questionnaires, we typically don't do that. And the reason for that is we just don't have the time, nor do we have the psychological, whatever that is, the expertise to really get to that.
Psychometric.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that word. And then... All right, and then there's the next level down, which is, all right, I've got answers back. I've analyzed them somehow. Now how do I tell whether this one's worse than this one? It's down to the analyst that looks at it. And then comes then what? Do I make them fix it? How do I do that? Do they follow up?
Raf, let me interject. How do I know who's in today's method? How do I even know who answered that question?
Yeah.
I've got 100 questions. Your typical shared assessment, right? 115 questions, 130 questions, split over 13 domains. The person that answers HR isn't the person that does vuln management. The vuln management person is not doing IAM. IAM is not doing compliance. So send this spreadsheet out. I'm asking them yes/no questions. And
I didn't even think of that.
And now I've got to go back to my point of contact and say, hey, I've got a follow-up question for the person that answered question 3 in vulnerability management, because that's important to me. Everything else I can, or 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 we just had another SolarWinds incident, and I want to know if you guys use it.
Yeah.
Right? These are the problems that we foresaw back in 2016, 17, when we started Just Protect. Not again, right? I hear all the time, it's impossible. And I'm like, well, no, because we've thought about it for a number of years. And there are ways to, even if, and plug aside, right? I don't want to, like, whatever. If someone wants to improve their process, take your existing spreadsheet and add a column that asks who is providing that answer.
Yeah. Super important.
Just start there. And you will improve your process dramatically. And if you have a follow-on question, yeah, by all means, you can email them, you can text them, you can do whatever. But that end-to-end assessment lifecycle has unfortunately just been bolted on to other processes, and hasn't been given the attention that it actually needs to solve the problem.
Look, then there's the tail end of this thing, which is reporting and trending. Are your vendors getting better? Are they getting worse? Somebody asks you, what's our exposure? And you brought a brilliant question up. Hey, there's somebody in our supply chain, are they impacted by X, Y, or Z thing that's now the talk of the industry? And the answer is, most of the time, I have no idea, but they do these controls things that we say, right? What's interesting, and I'm going to flip the coin on this before we run out of time, because I'm going to look at the other side of this lens. I'm going to look at it from the perspective, I was assigned. In fact, I'm doing one right now. Let me tell you how much I love these things. Because each of these, sometimes you can tell that somebody in the IT risk org wrote this, and sometimes you can tell somebody downloaded it, changed the company name, and sent it, and you're like, I don't know what you're asking because none of this applies. But every single one of them is worded just a little bit differently, and they're focused on something just a little bit different, so you can't reuse your questions.
Right.
As the person on the receiving end of these things, how many can you handle a year? Do you, as a vendor, do you have to have somebody dedicated? The answer is yes. 2, at my last job, we actually had an executive level person or a second tier that was dedicated to answering questionnaires. Holy crap!
Yeah. I have spoken to many organizations that have, if they're publicly traded or they're heavily regulated and they sell a product, right? Financial services, data-driven type companies, they have a team that's responding to these questions.
God, that's awful.
A team. And so, again, to your point, yes, the controls or the questions are similar in nature. And typically, if you know what you're doing, and you can tell where someone's going if you know the question. Yeah. The challenge is that those people at that level, no offense to them, don't know the difference. Yes. And therefore is the glitch in the matrix, right? If I reuse an answer, well, first of all, how old is that answer? Who answered it? Does that person still work for our organization? It says that they provided a attachment. Where the hell is that attachment? Come on, it's a effing shit show out there.
Yeah, yeah. No, dude, that warrants it, because, and then there's the attach evidence thing. Because I don't
want to attach evidence; it's proprietary information.
Right.
But at the same time, my external auditor is asking me that whether I collect evidence. Well, again, there are ways. It's not what we're doing; it's the way that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's incumbent on us as professionals to explore the options that are out there, not just be fed, this is the state of what is, so deal with it.
I tell you, my dream when I was doing these as a part of my everyday job was that all of our customers that would send us these would simply say, hey, can you just fill out the SOC 2?
Can you just do it?
And I would go, great. all of my providers, I'm going to answer the same set of controls.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this once. I'm going to be thorough. I'm going to provide evidence. I'm going to talk to the right people, get all the right answers, and then somebody's going to go, "Hey, are you yes? Do you have a yes? Here it is." That scales. The answer my 17 pages and then my neighbor's 17 and 3/4 pages, which are totally different, focused on something totally. It doesn't make sense, and then you there's so much opportunity cost in this thing. So much wasted time, so much wasted money, so much wasted effort, and so little security gain. That's the thing. I'm okay spending money on things that make sense. The amount of money and the amount of time and effort in people's lives that we spent on third-party risk questionnaires and assessments that don't get us any additional real benefit other than I have this piece of paper that you filled out that says, it is staggering. It's staggering.
I know. That's why we exist.
I know, and I'm glad.
I'm being coy because I was also on a CISO clubhouse call yesterday, and this particular CISO, who shall not be named, had said a number of times repeatedly, "I don't care if you're a vendor. I don't care if you solve my problem unless I reach out to you." You know what? Okay, then I'll keep on hearing stuff like it can't be done.
Yeah.
Right? The definition of madness, right? Do the same thing, expect a different result.
Yeah.
I think my message to you and the wider audience is, how about we be a bit more open-minded to see if people who have done the job before, because that's the critical part. If you've done the job before, then you understand the problem firsthand.
Yeah. Or at least you have a much tighter glimpse and more accurate perspective.
Right.
I as sort of parting thoughts, I've had that challenge. The InfoSec industry at large on the leadership side, from the buyer side, has gotten very, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Has gotten very shy. Has gotten very skittish. Has gotten very
apathetic.
I don't want to talk to vendors. Right? Yeah.
It's almost apathetic because, and there's a number of reasons why, in brackets, I got out of consulting, because it always came down to these are 10 things that have come up in the risk assessment. These are my high priority things, and now I'm going to throw all my effort into that. We as security practitioners have known for the longest period of time that you can't be looking through a tunnel or a microscope at trying to solve the problem. But the only way that the industry makes money is services or products.
Yeah.
So you've got to be then focused on that. And I think it is a shame because it compounds to the problem. It further,
no doubt.
We get asked all the time, so why are you like so-and-so vendor? You like so-and-so vendor? We say, no, we solve a problem. We're not like anyone else but us, because we solve a problem, and this is the problem that we solve.
Yeah.
If that resonates with you, then great. But if it doesn't, that's also great. But we're not like anyone else.
I don't know. I think the industry, and my parting thought is, I think the industry, cybersecurity product and service space is due for a massive shedding of just dead weight. I mean, look, you got a FireEye being dumped off into private equity, as Mandiant realized. I mean, I think they realized this years ago, and it's been. I read an article. It said to great surprise. I'm like, to whose great surprise? We knew FireEye was getting the product service division. Product division was going to be dumped off ages ago. It was a drag on the services. It always, but we look at this and go, all right, this industry is due for a serious rework, and my hope, and at the same time, the flip side is my fear, is that with as stodgy and cumbersome as vendors have become, and then the reaction from buyers has been like, I've seen it all before, I've heard it all before, don't bother me, I don't care what you're selling. We're no longer talking to each other constructively, and I absolutely, by the way, see, so I'm not disparaging you. I 100% think that we as vendors have earned that distrust and that distaste. But at the same time,
Pass a break.
right. You well, one, cut us a break because we gotta make a living too. But
Yeah.
I think the reality is there has to be better ways because we can't stay on this hamster wheel. The amount of firefighting we do consumes the team, and that ensures that you never look forward enough, right? This is the you've got blinders on and the fire is in front of you and you're running backwards. Meanwhile, you run off the cliff because you didn't see the cliff coming. You're so focused on the fire.
I heard yesterday, Raf, that information security for the first time has got a negative hiring rate. People are just like burnt out.
Yeah.
And they scapegoated or whatever. I think though the fundamental problem, which I think is changing now that more and more boards are taking it a bit more seriously, is that the business flywheel rate of change and the cyber flywheel rate of change is operating at two different speeds. So the business guy is talking about, I buy tech today. I need that tech to still be in operation because I'm going to amortize it over 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, if I take the technology that was the cutting edge technology that worked, right? Let's say that the technology that we're talking about
actually works.
Actually worked. Actually delivered on its business value proposition. Right. Would that tech still be adequate for today's problem? I doubt it. Because the threat vectors have changed.
Well, we're up against human threat actors.
Right.
People that adapt.
Sure. And as you know, back in the day, I was a sim guy. I would go back into clients, and they would still be using the same 3 to 5 use cases 3 years into the product. Right, that they used when they first procured the product or made the RFI, because again, to mature those use cases, you need either intelligence or you need bodies or you need capability
or all.
Well, we just spent 500,000 on or 700,000. Now you want 12 months later, you want a consulting firm or a SME to come in. That's not going to happen. And so the way that the industry, need to respond is providing practitioners with flexible enough solutions that don't come with the baggage of extended professional service. It's going to take you 3 months to get it in. No,
well, it's the as a service value prop. It's the You're describing the as a service. Security has to be security as a service. Much like infrastructure became infrastructure as a service. Software as a service. Hello, security. This is your wake up call. Everything in security needs to be delivered as a service.
Correct.
With consulting, implementation, support, operations built in. Otherwise, get out.
Yeah. Very simple. But I think, in defense of those organizations that are further into this journey than, let's say, us, they're also being funded by organizations that expect that kind of behavior. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true.
As those CISOs who are paid off, right, with the way it's done, maybe look at who is backing the companies that you're talking to see whether you're buying into more of the same or that there's some innovation there. There's some disruption. And if there isn't and it doesn't suit you, then, that's the wake-up call.
Yeah.
I think we're all in it together, right? Security duty of care. We're a band of brothers, right? I love closed-door CISO conversations because we put our guards down, we take our badges off, and we just talk frankly to each other.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter which side of the fence you're on. If you're a true security practitioner, you know you've got an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Irrespective of which direction it's going in.
Yeah, and you want the greater good. All right, man. That's about all the time I've got for this one. This has been, as always, a pleasure. Man, I gotta have you.
Let's not leave it as long.
Yeah, definitely. Let's not leave it as long. But you know what's crazy is I think if we waited 50, if we waited a year, this conversation will be valid. I want something to change. I need something to change. This hamster wheel sucks.
Well, if you give me 15 minutes, Raf, I can't guarantee you 15% off your car insurance. But maybe I'll save you some assessment time or something. I don't know.
That's beautiful. All right, I will post a folks, if you're interested in getting off that hamster wheel on the at least on the third party risk assessments and controls assessment side. Just Protect actually has a really interesting approach that I'm pretty sure you haven't seen before. I'll post a link to their page, and you guys can go Google the rest. But yeah, man, it's been a pleasure, and I love chatting with you because you're not only are you British, but you're also a proper football fan, even though you're a Liverpool fan.
Yeah,
I mean, at least you're not a man.
Champions League. I want to say that publicly. And yes, I did lose the bet. And yes, I will wear a Chelsea jersey.
Listen, at least you're not a Man U fan. That's what I'm saying.
There you go.
There's positive to everything. But all right, we'll have you back on. I'll send you a. Maybe we'll do it in person, and you can wear a good, nice Chelsea sweater.
There you go.
Jersey.
No place like it.
Exactly. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. This has been another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast, touching on what I imagine is a sore topic for everybody. But if we don't get to it, it's not going to change. So try something different. If you've got ideas that we haven't discussed, or if you're doing something, feedback is good. Twitter, LinkedIn. I think I've got blog comments turned on, or maybe not. I don't know. Hit us up, and I'll post Vikas's Twitter handle. I've got one. I'm on LinkedIn anyway. Find us. Let's talk. All right. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll catch you another time, another place. Cue the music, and we're out. See ya. Bye-bye.